He ran a hand through his perfectly tousled hair, the same gesture he used in boardroom photos, the one that made magazine covers call him visionary and disruptor. To her, it just looked tired, rehearsed. "I've been thinking," he began, eyes avoiding hers. "This arrangement isn't working." Her breath caught, not because she was surprised. She'd seen the texts on his phone, the late-night meetings, the way Bianca's perfume lingered on his collar, but because of how casually he said it, as if discarding a season's fashion, not a life. "What arrangement?" she asked softly, setting the cup down. Her voice didn't shake. "Not yet. This." He gestured vaguely between them, at the room, at the life they'd built. "You, me, the silence, the distance." She almost laughed. Distance? She'd been the one holding everything together while he drifted further into his own ego. But she didn't laugh. She stood, smoothing the simple linen dress she'd worn that morning, the one he once said made her look like a painting. "Are you leaving me, Bruno?" she asked, direct now. No more dancing. He finally met her eyes, and for a second, she saw something. Regret? Fear? But it vanished as quickly as it came. "I've met someone who understands me, who excites me." Bianca. The name landed like a stone in her chest. She'd known, of course, but hearing it spoken aloud in their bedroom, in their home, it was a violation. "And what about us?" she whispered. "What about everything we built?" "You built." He actually smiled, a thin, bitter thing. "Don't flatter yourself, Beatrice. I built this empire. You just kept the lights on." The words were meant to wound, and they did. But deeper than the pain was a sudden, startling clarity. This man, the one she'd loved, defended, believed in, had never truly seen her. Not as a partner, not as a person, only as background noise. She walked to the closet, her movements calm, deliberate. She pulled a suitcase from the top shelf, the same one she'd used on their honeymoon. She packed slowly. A few dresses, her mother's locket, the journal where she'd written every hope she'd ever had for them. No photos, no souvenirs. Those belonged to a dream that never was. Bruno watched from the doorway, arms crossed, as if waiting for her to beg. When she zipped the suitcase and turned to face him, her eyes were dry, clear. "Where will you go?" he asked, almost curious. "Somewhere you'll never look," she said. He handed her an envelope. "Take it. It's generous. And sign the NDA. No interviews, no stories. You disappear quietly, and you'll be comfortable." She looked at the envelope, then back at him. "Keep your money, Bruno, and your silence." She stepped past him, her shoulder brushing his. Once, the touch would have made him shiver. Now he didn't flinch. As she walked down the grand staircase for the last time, the rain finally broke. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, glinting off the wet marble. She didn't look back, but she felt it. The weight of everything left behind, and the terrifying, exhilarating lightness of starting over. And in that moment, Beatrice didn't feel broken. She felt awake. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada topico que for desenvolve. Mi conti sobrio topico tu com dialogo como su fosso espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com vida moco. Com os sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters when 3, Max Bruno stood on the balcony of his penthouse office. The city sprawled beneath him like a kingdom he'd conquered. The skyline glittered, his towers, his name on the glass, his empire carved into steel and glass. But inside, something hollowed. At 43, he'd begun to feel time like a tightening noose. The board meetings blurred. The deals felt hollow. Even the roar of his Lamborghini sounded like static. And then there was Bianca. She wasn't just beautiful, though she was, with sharp cheekbones and eyes that held just enough mystery to keep him guessing. She was alive. When she spoke, her voice crackled with ambition. When she laughed, it wasn't polite or restrained like Beatrice's. It was bold, unapologetic, like she owned the room before stepping into it. "Your wife called again," Bianca said now, leaning against the glass door, arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. She held his phone like it was a trophy. "Said you forgot your anniversary." Again. Bruno didn't turn. "Beatrice doesn't care about anniversaries." "Maybe not," Bianca replied, stepping closer, her heels clicking like a metronome against the marble. "But she cares that you don't. There's a difference." He finally faced her. In her tailored blazer and blood-red lipstick, she looked like the future. Sleek, ruthless, thrilling. Beatrice, in contrast, had started wearing cardigans again. She'd stopped dyeing the silver at her temples. She asked about his day like she genuinely wanted to hear the answer, not like she was scouting for leverage. "I'm tired of pretending," Bruno said quietly, more to himself than to her. "Pretending what?" Bianca asked, her voice softening just enough to sound tender. "That I'm still the man she married." He ran a hand over his face. "I'm not. I haven't been for years." Bianca moved in, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something expensive, smoky, nothing like the lavender and vanilla Beatrice always wore. "Then stop pretending," she whispered. "You built this life. You deserve to live it with someone who sees you, not someone who just tolerates you." The words struck deep, because wasn't that how it felt lately? Like Beatrice tolerated him. His moods, his absences, his ego. As if he were a difficult child she'd long ago stopped trying to understand. Later that night, over single malt whiskey in his study, Bianca traced the rim of her glass and said, "You know, she never really contributed to your success, did she? I mean, sure, she was there, but you're the genius, the force. She just existed in your shadow." Bruno didn't correct her. He should have. He knew Beatrice had rewritten the pitch deck that landed their first major investor. He remembered her staying up for 3 nights straight during the tax audit, her fingers flying over spreadsheets while he slept. But the memory felt distant now, muffled under layers of resentment and ego. "She holds you back," Bianca continued, her voice low, hypnotic. "She's comfortable, safe, and safe is death for someone like you." He looked at her, really looked. In her eyes, he saw not just desire, but belief. Belief in his power, his potential, his myth. Beatrice had stopped believing in myths years ago. She believed in truth, in balance, in quiet acts of love that didn't make headlines. And suddenly, that felt like weakness. "I can't keep living like this," he said, the decision forming as he spoke. "I need to start over, with someone who matches my energy." Bianca smiled, a slow, satisfied curve of her lips. "Then do it, before you lose yourself completely." He didn't sleep that night. He paced the halls of the mansion, past the library where Beatrice read poetry, past the kitchen where she still made his favorite soup when he was sick, past the bedroom where they hadn't shared a bed in months. Every room whispered her presence, her patience, her silent strength. And for the first time, he resented it. Because her strength made him feel small. Her grace made his flaws louder. Her love, steady, enduring, unshowy, felt like a mirror he no longer wanted to face. By dawn, his mind was made up. He would cut the cord. Clean, brutal, necessary. He told himself it wasn't cruelty. It was evolution. Beatrice came down slowly, barefoot, wearing the same linen dress from yesterday. She'd slept in it, not out of carelessness, but because she hadn't dared lie in their bed again after his words. She'd curled up on the chaise in the library, wrapped in a shawl, staring at the ceiling until dawn bled through the windows. She stopped 3 steps from the bottom, eyes meeting his. Not pleading, not angry, just waiting. "I've made a decision," Bruno said, voice flat, rehearsed. "This isn't working. You and I, we're done." The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, suffocating. Beatrice didn't flinch. "I see," she said quietly. "And what does done look like to you?" He gestured toward the door. "You leave, today. I've arranged a driver. There's an apartment in the West End, fully furnished. You'll be comfortable." "Comfortable," she repeated, the word tasting bitter. Is that what you call exile? This isn't exile, he snapped, irritation cracking his composure. It's practical, clean, no drama, no drama. A faint, sad smile touched her lips. You're throwing away 12 years over a woman who's been in your life for 12 weeks, and you call that clean? Bianca stepped forward. Beatrice, don't make this harder than it has to be. Bruno's being generous. Beatrice turned to her then, really looked at her for the first time. Not with jealousy, but with a quiet, unnerving clarity. Generous? He's offering me a gilded cage and calling it kindness. That's not generosity. That's control. You sign nothing. Bruno cut in sharper now. You have no legal claim. Walk away quietly, or I'll make sure you get nothing. Not even your name in the press. For the first time, something flickered in Beatrice's eyes. Not fear, but fire. You think I stayed all these years for your money? For your name? Her voice dropped, low and trembling with restrained emotion. I stayed because I believed in you, even when you didn't believe in yourself. She walked past them both toward the study. Bruno followed, confused. Bianca hovered in the doorway. Beatrice opened the safe behind the bookshelf, the one only she knew the code to. She pulled out a single manila folder and handed it to him. What's this? He asked, wary. Your offshore accounts, she said. The ones you forgot to declare. The ones I set up to protect you during the 2019 audit. The ones Bianca's been asking about. Bianca paled. I never... Save it, Beatrice said, not even looking at her. You've been digging. I saw the emails. You thought I was hiding assets from Bruno, but I was hiding them for him. From the IRS, from creditors, from people like you. Bruno's hands shook as he flipped through the documents. Signatures, transfers, legal shields, all in her handwriting, all bearing her initials as authorized signatory. You controlled the money? He whispered. I protected it, she corrected, because you were too busy chasing headlines to read a balance sheet. Silence crashed down. Even Bianca seemed to shrink. Then Bruno did something unexpected. He laughed, a short, hollow sound. So what? You're threatening me now? Blackmail? No, Beatrice said, meeting his eyes with heartbreaking calm. I'm reminding you that I'm not the one who needs saving, and I'm not the one who'll be lost without this house. She turned and walked back upstairs. When she returned minutes later, she carried a single suitcase, smaller than before. She'd left behind everything. The designer clothes, the jewelry, the art. Only her passport, her grandmother's locket, and a worn copy of Neruda's poems remained. At the front door, she paused. You want me gone? Fine. But don't pretend this is about love. It's about ego. And one day, Bruno, you'll wake up alone in this mansion, surrounded by everything you thought you wanted, and realize you traded your soul for a reflection. She stepped outside. The driver waited by the car, eyes downcast. Bruno didn't follow. He stood in the doorway watching her go, the folder still clutched in his hand. Bianca approached, trying to sound reassuring. She's bluffing. Those accounts, they're probably fake. But Bruno didn't answer. He stared at the empty driveway, the silence pressing in like a physical weight. And for the first time in years, he felt not victorious, but small, unmoored, as if the ground beneath him had just vanished. He didn't know it yet, but Beatrice hadn't just left the house. The driver dropped her at a modest apartment complex on the edge of the financial district. Bruno's generous gesture. One bedroom, faded curtains, the hum of traffic instead of birdsong. She stood in the doorway, key in hand, and for the first time since she was 22 and alone in a foreign country, she let herself cry, but only for 3 minutes. Then she wiped her face, squared her shoulders, and walked inside. She didn't unpack. Not yet. Instead, she sat on the floor, back against the wall, and opened her phone. Dozens of missed calls from old friends, former colleagues, even her sister in Lisbon. She ignored them all, but one message caught her eye. From Elias, her oldest friend and the only lawyer she'd ever trusted. Heard what happened. Call me. I have an idea. She dialed. His voice was calm, steady. The kind of voice that had talked her through panic attacks during Bruno's early startup days. Beatrice, he said gently, you don't have to disappear. I have nothing, Elias, she whispered. No income, no leverage. He froze everything. Not everything, Elias replied. Remember the Cayman structure? The one you set up under your maiden name? The one he never knew about. Her breath hitched. She had a failsafe created years ago after Bruno's first major betrayal, a fling with a venture capitalist that nearly sank a deal. She'd funneled a small percentage of every major transaction into a blind trust, legally separate, shielded by layers of privacy laws. It wasn't billions, but it was enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to fight. Why didn't you tell me you still had access? Elias asked. Because I never wanted to use it, she said softly. I believed he'd change, that we'd grow old together. That love was enough. Silence stretched between them. Well, Elias finally said, love wasn't enough, but this might be. 2 days later, Beatrice walked into a sleek downtown law firm, not as a victim, but as a client. She wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, no makeup, but her eyes, those held a new kind of fire. She met with a real estate attorney named Miranda, sharp-eyed and ruthless, known for dismantling empires with a single subpoena. You understand the risk? Miranda asked, scanning the financial documents Beatrice had provided. If he finds out you're behind this, he'll come after you with everything. Beatrice sipped her tea, calm. Let him. He thinks you're broken. I was, she admitted. But broken things can be reforged. Stronger, sharper. Miranda leaned forward. The mansion is collateral on a loan Bruno took out last year. Unsecured, high interest, tied to a shell company that's now under IRS scrutiny. If he defaults, and he will once the tax penalties hit, the property goes to auction. And who's bidding? Beatrice asked. Miranda smiled. A newly formed holding company, registered in Luxembourg. Anonymous ownership, but with deep pockets. Beatrice nodded. Good. That night, she stood on the balcony of her tiny apartment, watching the distant glow of the city skyline. The same skyline Bruno gazed at from his penthouse, thinking he owned it all. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You really walked away with nothing? Pathetic. Beatrice stared at the message. Then she typed back, slowly, deliberately. I walked away with my dignity. You'll learn the difference soon enough. She hit send, and for the first time in weeks, she slept through the night. Not because she'd won, but because she finally knew how she would. The mansion wasn't just stone and glass. It was memory, power, legacy, and in 5 days, when the auction hammer fell, she'd be the one holding the deed. But then came the second letter, and the third, and a call from his CFO, voice tight with panic. Bruno, the offshore accounts, they're frozen. The IRS says there's a discrepancy in the beneficial ownership declarations. What discrepancy? Bruno snapped, pacing his office, the city glittering mockingly below. They're claiming the signatory wasn't authorized, that the paperwork was forged. He froze. That's impossible. Beatrice handled all of it. Exactly, the CFO said quietly. And she's not talking. Bruno's stomach dropped. He called her again and again, straight to voicemail. He sent messages. No reply. He even drove to the West End apartment, pounding on the door until a neighbor yelled at him to leave. The place was empty. She'd vanished. Meanwhile, Bianca grew, restless. You said you had everything under control, she hissed one evening, swirling wine in a crystal glass that used to belong to Beatrice. Now your CFO's talking about asset liquidation? I'll fix it, Bruno muttered, rubbing his temples. It's just bureaucracy. But it wasn't. 2 days later, a notice appeared on the gate of the mansion. Property subject to judicial auction tax lien enforcement. Bruno stared at it like it was written in another language. This can't be real, he whispered. But it was. He called his lawyers. They were grim. The debt is tied to a shell entity you personally guaranteed. If you don't settle within 72 hours, the estate goes to public auction. Settle with what? Bruno exploded. My liquid assets are tied up in the accounts she controlled. And then it hit him, the truth, cold and brutal. Beatrice hadn't just walked away. She'd left a time bomb in the foundation of his empire. Across town, in a quiet cafe with rain-streaked windows, Beatrice met Elias again. She stirred her tea slowly, her reflection fractured in the glass. "He's panicking," Elias said, sliding a tablet toward her. "He tried to sell his yacht, his art collection, even offered to buy back your silence." She didn't look up. "And he thinks you want money." A faint, sad smile touched her lips. "I don't want his money. I want him to understand what he threw away." Elias leaned in. "The auction is in 48 hours. You're ready?" She nodded. "The holding company is set. Funds are wired. Bidding will be anonymous until the final transfer. And if he tries to stop it, he can't," she said softly. "The law is on my side, for once." That night, Bruno sat alone in the mansion's dining room, the same table where Beatrice had hosted charity galas, birthday dinners, quiet Sunday suppers. Now it was empty. Dust gathered on the chandelier. The roses in the garden wilted, unwatered. He poured himself a drink, then another. And then, for the first time in years, he opened the drawer in the sideboard, the one Beatrice always kept locked. Inside, he found a stack of letters. Not love letters, not accusations, just notes. "Bruno, your mother called. She's worried about you. I told her you're just busy. I hope that's still true. You forgot your father's birthday again. I sent flowers in your name." He cried. "I sold my earrings today. The startup payroll was short. Don't worry. I told no one." Each one dated. Each one signed simply, B. His hands shook. He sank to his knees, the letters spilling around him like fallen leaves. He hadn't just lost a wife. He'd lost the only person who'd ever truly held him together. And now the house, the symbol of everything he thought he'd won, was slipping through his fingers. Not because of the IRS, not because of bad luck, because Beatrice had finally stopped holding on. The morning of the auction dawned gray and heavy. Bruno stood on the mansion's terrace, phone pressed to his ear, voice raw. "Just tell me who's bidding. I'll double it, triple it." The auctioneer sighed. "Mr. Valente, the winning bidder has already wired full payment. The deed transfers at noon." "Who is it?" Bruno shouted, desperation cracking his voice. There was a pause. Then, quietly, "You'll find out soon enough." At 11:58 a.m., a black town car pulled up to the gate. Bruno watched from the window, heart hammering. The door opened. Out stepped Beatrice. She wore a tailored charcoal coat, hair swept back, eyes clear and steady. No triumph, no gloating, just quiet resolve. She walked past the gate, her gate now, and straight toward the front door. Bruno stood in the foyer, trembling. You bought it?" She stopped a few feet away. "I did." "Why?" His voice broke. "To hurt me?" "No," she said, meeting his gaze. "To remind you that everything you thought was yours was never really yours at all." He stood frozen in the center of the foyer, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, as if he'd been struck silent by the sheer impossibility of her return. "You can't be here," he finally managed, voice hoarse. "This is mine," she finished calmly, closing the door behind her. "Legally, irrevocably, the deed was filed an hour ago." Bruno's hands clenched at his sides. "You used my money. The offshore accounts were never yours," she interrupted, stepping forward. "They were structured under my legal authority, signed with my biometric verification, routed through entities I controlled. You never read the fine print, Bruno. You never read anything I put in front of you, unless it had your name in bold at the top." He flinched as if slapped. From the grand staircase, a sharp gasp cut through the tension. Bianca stood there, wrapped in a silk robe, eyes blazing. You think you can just waltz back in here and take what's his? Beatrice turned slowly, her gaze steady. What's his? The unpaid taxes? The frozen assets? The crumbling reputation? She took another step. This house was never his. It was ours. And you? You were just a distraction he mistook for destiny. Bianca descended the stairs, heels clicking like a countdown. You're pathetic. You got dumped, and now you're playing real estate tycoon with daddy's secret stash. Beatrice didn't rise to the bait. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a tablet. She tapped the screen and held it up. This is a court-authorized eviction notice, effective immediately, for unauthorized occupants. Bianca scoffed. You can't evict me. I live here. No, Beatrice said softly. You squatted here, with no lease, no ownership, no legal standing. You're trespassing. Bruno stepped between them. Beatrice, please, just give us time to... To what? She asked, her voice cracking for the first time. Pack your mistress's designer shoes? Decide which of my paintings she gets to keep. No, she shook her head, tears glistening but not falling. You made your choice in this very room. Cold. Final. You said I had nothing, so I left with nothing. And now I've come back with everything you threw away. She walked past them both, toward the study, the heart of the house, where deals were made and dreams were buried. She placed her hand on the doorframe, remembering every late night, every crisis averted, every time she'd swallowed her pride so his empire wouldn't crack. Then she turned back to them, standing in the hallway like a queen reclaiming her throne. Security will be here in 10 minutes, she said evenly. You have until then to gather your things. After that, anything left behind becomes property of the estate and will be donated. Bianca's face twisted in fury. You're bluffing. Beatrice pulled out her phone and tapped a button. Instantly, two men in dark suits appeared at the front gate, badges visible, earpieces in place. They didn't speak. They just waited. Bianca paled. Bruno, go, he whispered, not looking at her. His eyes were locked on Beatrice, filled with something raw, shame, regret, maybe even awe. Bianca hesitated, then stormed upstairs, cursing under her breath. Silence fell. Just the two of them now. The man who thought he owned the world, and the woman who quietly held its strings. You could have told me, Bruno said quietly, about the accounts, about everything. I did, Beatrice replied. For 12 years. You just never listened. He swallowed hard. What do you want from me now? Humiliation. Revenge. She looked around the room, the library shelves she'd curated, the Persian rug she'd chosen in Istanbul, the window seat where she'd read to herself on nights he never came home. I don't want anything from you, she said, except for you to understand. This wasn't about taking your house. It was about taking back my life. Outside, a car engine rumbled. Bianca emerged with 2 suitcases, face streaked with mascara, throwing one last venomous glare at Beatrice before slamming the gate behind her. Bruno didn't follow. He just stood there, hollowed out, staring at the woman who had once loved him enough to vanish, and now loved herself enough to return. And as the clock struck noon, the mansion exhaled. Not as a tomb. He heard footsteps behind him. Not hurried, not angry, just certain. Beatrice walked past without looking at him, heading toward the study. She set her coat on the chair, then turned on the desk lamp, the same brass lamp he'd given her on their 5th anniversary, the one she'd kept polished even when he forgot her birthday. Where will I go? He asked, voice low, almost childlike. She paused, fingers resting on the edge of the desk. That's not my concern. But I have nowhere, he insisted, desperation creeping in. My accounts are frozen. My name's being dragged through the press. Even my lawyers won't return my calls. She finally turned to face him. Her eyes weren't cruel, but they weren't soft either. They were clear, like glass over deep water. You had a place, she said. You chose to give it away for someone who left you with 2 suitcases and a sneer. He flinched. I made a mistake. A mistake. A faint, bitter laugh escaped her. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was erase me, publicly, deliberately. You told me I contributed nothing, and then acted shocked when I proved you wrong. He took a step forward. Beatrice, please, just let me stay. In the guest wing, the pool house, anything. I'll pay rent. No. She cut in, firm but calm. You don't get to negotiate terms after you've already dictated them. Before he could respond, the front door opened again. 2 more security personnel entered. Calm, professional, silent. They stood by the archway, arms clasped behind their backs. Bruno's chest tightened. You're really throwing me out? After everything, she repeated softly. You're still asking what you get, not what I lost, not what I rebuilt, just what you're owed. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he had no defense. She walked to the window, watching the garden. The roses she'd planted, now tangled and overgrown. You know what hurts the most? She said, not turning. Not the betrayal, not even the eviction. It's that you never once asked if I was okay. Not when you brought her here. Not when you handed me that envelope. Not even now. He stared at her back, at the straight line of her spine, the quiet strength in her stillness. And something inside him cracked. Not loudly, but deeply. I'm asking now, he whispered. She turned slowly. Too late. The lead security officer stepped forward. Mr. Valente, we'll escort you to your vehicle. Bruno didn't move. I don't have a vehicle. She took the keys. Beatrice reached into her pocket and tossed them onto the console table. Your car's in the garage. Take it. And don't come back unless you're invited. He picked up the keys, their weight suddenly unbearable. As he passed her, he stopped. Will you ever forgive me? She didn't answer right away. Then, so quietly he almost missed it. Forgiveness isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. And right now, you haven't even started. He walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. Outside, the sky was clearing. Sunlight broke through the clouds, glinting off the wet leaves. He stood there for a long moment, keys in hand, staring at the house that had once been his sanctuary and was now a monument to his own blindness. Inside, Beatrice sank into the desk chair, trembling, not from anger, from exhaustion, from grief, from the unbearable weight of having to become someone hard enough to survive him. She opened the bottom drawer, the one he never knew existed, and pulled out a single photo. The 2 of them on their honeymoon in Santorini, wind in her hair, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling like the future was a promise, not a threat. She traced his face with her thumb. Then she placed it face down and stood, because the house was hers now, and she would fill it with something new. But as she walked toward the kitchen to make her tea, in her cups, she heard a sound from the driveway. Not an engine starting. Silence. She peeked through the curtain. Bruno was still there, standing in the rain that had started again, keys in hand, head bowed, not leaving. And in that moment, she didn't feel victory. She felt the terrifying, fragile stirrings of something else. Hope, or just the ghost of what they used to be. She didn't know. But for the first time, she sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp with panic. I told you I need the money now. The hotel's asking for another night's deposit, and my card just got declined. On the other end, her younger brother sighed. Bianca, you said you were set, that he was going to marry you. He was, she snapped, pacing the room in bare feet, her designer heels abandoned by the door, until she came back. Who? His wife, ex-wife, whatever. She owns everything now, even the damn house. Silence. Then, quietly, you played with fire, sis. She threw the phone onto the bed. Outside, the city glittered, cold, indifferent. She'd come to this town with nothing but ambition and a sharp tongue, convinced she could climb to the top on the backs of men like Bruno. And for a while, it worked. She'd tasted the champagne, worn the couture, whispered in the ears of power. But now, Now she was just another girl who'd mistaken a man's ego for love. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Saw you checking out of the Lumen. Rough week. Her blood ran cold. She typed back, "Who is this?" "Someone who knows you've been digging. Asking about offshore accounts. Talking to Bruno's CFO." She froze. Only one person would know that. Beatrice. Her fingers flew over the screen. "What do you want?" The reply came instantly. "Meet me. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Café Noir. Come alone. Or I send your texts to the SEC." Bianca's breath hitched. She'd been careless, too eager, too greedy. She'd thought Beatrice was broken, invisible. She never imagined she'd be watching. The next afternoon, rain drizzled over the cobblestone streets as Bianca stepped into Café Noir, heart pounding. She spotted Beatrice immediately, seated by the window, sipping tea, calm as a statue. She wore a simple cream sweater, no jewelry, hair loose. She looked ordinary, and that terrified Bianca more than any power suit ever could. "You're late," Beatrice said without looking up. Bianca slid into the chair across from her. "What do you want? Money? Revenge?" Beatrice finally met her eyes. "I want the truth," Bianca scoffed. "About what? About why you really went after him?" Beatrice leaned forward slightly. "Because it wasn't love, and it wasn't even lust. It was strategy. You needed access to his network, to his assets, to his blind spots." Bianca's mask slipped, just for a second. "You don't know anything. I know you applied for a visa extension 2 weeks before you slept with him," Beatrice said softly. "I know your father's company collapsed under fraud charges in Lisbon. I know you were days away from deportation." Bianca's hands trembled around her coffee cup. "So what? Everyone uses what they have." "Yes," Beatrice said, "but not everyone destroys lives to do it." "I didn't destroy anything," Bianca hissed, leaning in. "He was already empty. You just refused to see it. I gave him excitement, purpose, something you stopped giving years ago." For the first time, Beatrice's composure cracked. Her eyes glistened. "I gave him loyalty, stability, a home. But you're right, I stopped giving him drama. And you mistook that for weakness." She reached into her bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. "This is a one-way ticket to Lisbon, and enough to settle your father's debts." Bianca stared at it like it was a snake. "Why?" "Because I won't let you drag Bruno through a public scandal just to save yourself," Beatrice said. "And because I refuse to become the kind of woman who ruins others to feel powerful." Bianca laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You think this makes you noble? You bought his house out from under him. You humiliated him." "I gave him back the truth," Beatrice corrected. "You gave him a fantasy, and fantasies always collapse." She stood, pulling on her coat. "Take the ticket. Leave tonight. If I see your name in the news, if you contact him again, if you so much as look at this city, I'll release everything. The texts, the emails, the recordings." Bianca paled. "Recordings?" Beatrice gave her a look that said everything. "You talk in your sleep, Bianca, and so does he." She turned to leave. "Wait," Bianca called out, voice small now. "Do you still love him?" Beatrice paused at the door. She didn't turn around. "Love isn't possession. It's respect. And he lost mine the day he chose to believe I was nothing." She stepped out into the rain. Behind her, Bianca sat frozen, the envelope untouched, tears mixing with her mascara. And in that moment, she understood. Beatrice hadn't won because she was ruthless. She'd won because she never stopped being human. While Bianca, she'd forgotten how. He pushed open the rusted gate of Unit 17, the place where it all began. The startup, the dream, the disaster. Inside, dust floated in shafts of gray light. Broken desks, faded whiteboards still scrawled with equations and half-formed logos. And in the corner, the safe, the one Beatrice had insisted they buy, even when they couldn't afford rent. He knelt, fingers tracing the dial. He didn't know the combination, but he remembered her hands turning it, Late at night, after investors had walked out, after banks had said no, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos, hundreds of them, most of Beatrice, laughing at a dinner party, frowning over a spreadsheet, asleep on the couch with a blanket draped over her shoulders. He stopped at one, her standing in this very room, holding a single envelope, sunlight catching the gold in her hair. The caption read, "Day we got the Series A. She never told me she mortgaged her mother's house to make payroll." His breath caught. He'd forgotten, or maybe he'd buried it, too ashamed to admit that while he gave speeches about disruption, she was selling her inheritance to keep the lights on. A noise behind him made him turn. An elderly man stood in the doorway, leaning on a cane. Mr. Delgado, the building's caretaker, who'd let them stay rent-free for 3 months when they couldn't pay. "Mr. Valente," Delgado said, voice rough but kind. "Haven't seen you in years." "Just remembering," Bruno said, rising slowly. Delgado stepped inside, eyes scanning the ruin. "Your wife used to come here every Sunday, even after you moved to the penthouse. She'd clean, organize, leave envelopes in the safe." Bruno frowned. "Envelopes?" Delgado nodded, said you might need them one day, just in case he forgets who he is. "She told me." Bruno's throat tightened. What was in them? The old man walked to the safe and, to Bruno's shock, spun the dial with practiced ease. Clicked open. Inside were dozens of sealed manila folders, each labeled with a year. Delgado pulled out the one marked 2019 and handed it to him. Bruno opened it with trembling hands. Bank statements, legal affidavits, a notarized letter from Beatrice. If Bruno ever faces criminal liability for the Q3 tax discrepancies, this document proves I alone authorized the offshore transfers. He was unaware. Protect him. Beneath it, a copy of the deed to her mother's house in Lisbon. Sold. Dated the same week his company nearly collapsed. "She never told me," Bruno whispered, voice breaking. "She never told anyone," Delgado said gently. "Said love wasn't about credit. It was about cover." Bruno sank to his knees, the papers clutched to his chest. All this time, he'd believed his success was his alone, that she'd merely accompanied him. But the truth was, she'd carried him. Quietly, relentlessly, sacrificially, and he'd repaid her with silence. With Bianca, with a suitcase and a door slammed in her face. Outside, the mist thickened. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolled. Delgado placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's back in the mansion, you know?" Bruno looked up, eyes wet. "I know. You going to fight for her?" Bruno shook his head. "I don't deserve to." "Maybe not," Delgado said. "But you owe her the truth, even if it's too late." Bruno stood, folding the letter carefully, tucking it into his coat like a relic. As he walked out, he passed a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. In it, he saw not the billionaire, not the visionary, but a man hollowed by pride, staring back with haunted eyes. And for the first time, he didn't look away, because the past wasn't just memory now. It was a mirror, and Beatrice hadn't just left him. She'd left him with the unbearable weight of seeing himself clearly. He walked back toward the city, not toward the mansion, but toward the law offices downtown. At first, people thought it was a mistake. Bruno Valente's social circle had scattered like ash after the scandal broke. His name was poison in boardrooms, his face blurred out in gossip columns. But then the calls started coming, not from publicists, but from Beatrice herself. She called Maria, the former housekeeper who'd been let go when Bruno downsized for efficiency. She called Raj, the engineer who'd slept on the office couch during the Series B crunch, only to be fired when he asked for equity. She called Elena, the nonprofit director whose grant Bruno had publicly mocked as charity for dreamers. One by one, they said yes, not because they wanted to see the mansion, but because they wanted to see her. The night of the gathering, the gates opened at dusk. Cars rolled in, not Lamborghinis or Bentleys, but modest sedans, aging hybrids, even a few taxis. The guests stepped out in everything from thrift store suits to elegant gowns, but all carried the same quiet disbelief. She remembered us. Inside, the mansion had changed. The cold marble was softened by rugs woven by women from the cooperative Beatrice had quietly funded for years. The grand chandelier was dimmed, replaced by warm lanterns strung through the garden. Classical music played softly, Beatrice's favorite Chopin nocturne, but mingled with laughter, real and unguarded. She stood by the terrace doors, wearing a deep emerald dress, hair loose, no jewelry but her grandmother's locket. She greeted each guest by name, hugged Maria like a sister, clasped Raj's hands like an old comrade. "You didn't have to do this," Raj said, eyes glistening. "After everything he did." "I didn't do it for him," Beatrice replied softly. "I did it for us, for everyone he forgot, and I refused to." Then, through the crowd, she saw him. Bruno stood at the edge of the driveway, still in his coat, hands in his pockets, looking like a ghost unsure if he was welcome in the world of the living. He hadn't been invited, but he'd come anyway. Their eyes met across the room. The chatter dimmed, as if the air itself held its breath. Beatrice didn't smile, but she didn't turn away. She walked toward him, the crowd parting silently. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice low but steady. "I know," he replied, "but I needed to see this." "Why?" "Because I thought this house was mine," he said, glancing around. At Maria laughing with Elena, at Raj showing old blueprints to a group of young founders. "But it was always yours. You filled it with people who mattered. I just filled it with mirrors." She studied his face, the shadows under his eyes, the absence of arrogance, the raw humility she'd never seen before. "Why are you really here, Bruno?" He took a deep breath. "To tell you I've filed the affidavit, the one clearing your name with the SEC. I told them everything, the accounts, the structure, your role. I took full responsibility for the misreporting. It's done." She didn't react at first. Then, quietly, "You didn't have to do that." "Yes," he said, meeting her gaze. "I did, because for 12 years, I let the world believe I built this alone. And the truth is, I'd be nothing without you." A silence stretched between them, thick with everything unsaid. Then, from the terrace, Maria called out, "Beatrice, the cake's ready." It was a simple chocolate cake, her favorite, topped with a single candle. "For what?" Bruno asked. "For new beginnings," she said, almost to herself. She turned to go but paused. "You can stay, for 1 hour, but you don't speak to anyone unless spoken to. And you don't pretend this is forgiveness." He nodded, understood. As she walked away, he lingered by the fountain, watching her light the candle, watching her laugh as Elena teased her about never throwing a party before. And in that moment, he realized something devastating. He didn't miss the mansion. He missed her, her warmth, her wisdom, the quiet strength that had held his world together long after he'd stopped noticing. Later, as guests began to leave, Raj approached Bruno. "She saved my family," he said simply. "When you fired me, she paid my daughter's medical bills for a year. Never told a soul." Bruno said nothing. There was nothing to say. When the last car pulled away, only Beatrice and Bruno remained. She stood on the terrace, looking up at the stars. He joined her, keeping his distance. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For reminding me what matters." She turned to him then, eyes searching his. "Do you really see it now?" "Yes," he whispered. "I see you, not as a backdrop, not as a safety net, but as the foundation." She didn't respond, but for the first time she didn't walk away. P.S. on the gravel path. Slow, hesitant. She didn't turn. "I brought coffee," Bruno said, holding out a paper cup from the little cafe down the street, the one she used to visit every Sunday when he was too busy for breakfast. She took it without a word. The warmth seeped into her palms. He sat on the bench a careful distance away. "I spoke to the board yesterday. Resigned. Officially." She sipped her coffee. "Good. They offered me a severance. I turned it down. Said it should go to the employee relief fund you set up." She finally looked at him. "Why?" "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "And because I'm tired of doing the easy thing." A bird called from the olive tree, the one she'd planted from her grandmother's garden. Bruno followed her gaze. "I forgot that was there," he murmured. "You were never home long enough to notice it grow," she said, not unkindly. Silence settled between them again, but this time it wasn't cold. It was waiting. Then he turned to her, eyes raw. "I want the house back." Her breath caught, not because she was surprised, but because she'd been dreading this moment. The negotiation, the transaction, the return of the old Bruno, cloaked in humility but still reaching for control. She set her cup down. "No, not like that," he rushed to say. "Not as a demand, as a request. I'll pay market rent. Sign a lease. Whatever you need." She studied him, the lines around his eyes, the absence of arrogance in his posture, the way his hands trembled slightly around his own cup. "Why?" she asked again, softer this time. "Why do you want it back?" He looked down. "Because it's the only place I ever felt real. Before I started believing my own headlines. Before I became the man who kicked you out." He swallowed hard. "I know I don't deserve to be here, but I'm asking not for the house, for a chance to remember who I was before I forgot myself." She stood, walking to the edge of the terrace, where the garden sloped down toward the old stone wall. "You offered me money when you threw me out. Now you're offering it again," wrapped in pretty words. "I'm not offering money," he said, rising to follow. "I'm offering accountability. Work, time, whatever it takes." She turned to face him, eyes glistening. "You think I want your money, Bruno? After everything? I could have sold this place 10 times over by now. Could have vanished to some island and never looked back. Then why didn't you?" he whispered. "Because this house holds more than your mistakes," she said, voice breaking. "It holds the life I built while you were too busy chasing ghosts. And I won't let you walk back in like nothing happened." He nodded slowly. "I don't expect you to." Then quietly, "But if there's even a sliver of space for me, not as your husband, not as the owner, just as someone trying to be better, then tell me how to earn it." She looked at him for a long time. The man who once commanded boardrooms now stood before her like a penitent, offering not power, but presence. Finally, she spoke. "There's a community center in Eastbridge. It's underfunded, falling apart. They need someone to rebuild the roof, fix the plumbing, organize the donation drives." He blinked. "You want me to a volunteer?" "I want you to work," she corrected. "With your hands. Your time. Your name means nothing there. No one cares who you were. They only care if you show up." He didn't hesitate. "I'll do it. Every day. For 6 months. No press. No social media. Just you and the work." "I'll do it," he repeated, firmer this time. She turned back to the garden. "Then start Monday." He stood there a moment longer, then turned to leave. "Bruno," she called after him. He stopped. "If you quit, if you miss a day, if you use this as a photo op, I'll sell this house the next morning and disappear so completely, you'll never find me again." He met her eyes. "I won't." And for the first time, she believed him. Not because he promised. He was on his knees in the basement, wrestling with a corroded pipe, when his phone buzzed. Not a call. A message. From Bianca. "Saw you on the news. Sweeping floors like a janitor. Pathetic. You really let her break you." He stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the delete button. But before he could act, another message popped up. "I heard she's selling the mansion next month. To a tech billionaire. You'll be erased completely." His breath hitched. He typed back, fingers stiff with cold and grime. "If that's true, it's her choice, and I respect it." The reply came instantly. "You've become a ghost." Is that what she wanted? A servant? He didn't answer. Instead, he powered off the phone and tucked it into his pocket. He had work to do, but doubt had taken root. That evening, as he walked back to his apartment under a bruised twilight sky, he passed a newsstand. A glossy magazine lay open on the rack, Metropolitan Life. The cover story, "The Woman Who Reclaimed Everything," Beatriz Valente's quiet revolution. His heart hammered. He bought the magazine with exact change and read it under the flickering street lamp. Inside, there were photos of her at the community center, his community center, handing out meals, kneeling beside children, laughing with staff. No mention of him, not once. But in one photo, barely visible in the background, was a man in a work vest, head down, fixing a window frame. Him. The article called her a force of quiet justice, a builder of second chances, the anti-billionaire. And then, near the end, when asked if she'll keep the Valente estate, she simply smiled and said, "Homes aren't made of marble. They're made of choices." He folded the magazine carefully and walked home in silence. The next morning, he arrived at the center early. Mrs. Langley, the director, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, handed him a crowbar. "Roof's leaking again," she said. "North wing." He nodded and climbed the ladder without complaint. Hours later, soaked in sweat and rain, he sat on the edge of the roof, eating a sandwich from the deli across the street. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was his former CFO. Bruno, the buyer for the mansion, backed out. Rumor is Beatrice turned them down. Said the house isn't for sale. Any truth to that? Bruno's hands stilled. He looked out over the neighborhood. The cracked sidewalks, the mural the kids had painted last week, the old oak tree where he'd helped build a reading nook. For the first time in years, he felt useful. Not powerful, not admired, just needed. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. He didn't care if she sold the mansion, because the home he was trying to rebuild wasn't made of stone or glass. It was being forged in humility, in calloused hands, in showing up when no one was watching. Still, that night he couldn't sleep. He walked to the edge of the city, to a hill overlooking the valley but then the door creaked open. He turned, expecting Mrs. Langley with another list of repairs. Instead, he saw Beatrice. She stood in the doorway, coat pulled tight, hair damp, eyes wide with something he couldn't name. Worry? Urgency? Fear? Beatrice. He wiped his hands on his jeans, suddenly self-conscious of the grime, the torn sleeve, the smell of mildew and sawdust that clung to him. "The bank called me," she said, voice tight. "They're foreclosing on the center. The loan defaulted last month." Mrs. Langley never told anyone. Bruno froze. What? She used her retirement to keep it afloat after the city cut funding. But it wasn't enough. They're shutting it down in 48 hours. He stared at her, the hammer still in his hand. "Why are you telling me?" "Because you're the only one who's been here every day," she said, stepping inside, water pooling at her feet. "Because you care. And because I don't know what to do." The admission hung between them, raw, vulnerable. Beatrice, who'd reclaimed a mansion, who'd faced down empires, was standing in a leaking room, asking for help. He set the hammer down slowly. "There's no way to stop it? Not without $500,000 by Friday," she said bitterly. "And even I don't move that fast." Silence stretched, broken only by the drumming rain and the distant wail of a siren. Then Bruno did something unexpected. He laughed, a short, broken sound. "All this time, I thought I was here to earn your forgiveness. But maybe I was meant to be here for this." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" He walked to his bag and pulled out a folded envelope, thick, official, sealed with a legal insignia. "I sold my patent portfolio last week. The one from the early days, before the IPO, has been dormant, but a biotech firm just licensed it. The wire clears tomorrow." Her eyes widened. "How much?" $620,000. She took a step back as if struck. "You'd give that to save this place?" "I'm not giving it," he said gently. "I'm investing in what matters, in what you built, in what we both almost lost." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. "Why, Bruno? After everything I've put you through." "You didn't put me through anything," he interrupted. "I put myself through it. And you gave me a chance to come back. Not as the man I was, but as the man I could be." She looked around the room, the handmade bookshelves, the crayon drawings taped to the walls, the tiny chairs where children sat wide-eyed as volunteers read them stories. This place saved me too, she whispered. When I left you, I came here first. Mrs. Langley gave me tea and didn't ask questions. Just said, sit, breathe. You're safe. He moved closer, stopping just out of reach. Then let's save it together. She searched his face, the sincerity in his eyes, the absence of pride, the quiet strength that had replaced arrogance. What if I'm still angry? She asked, voice trembling. What if I can't forget the way you looked at me when you handed me that suitcase? I don't expect you to forget, he said. I just hope one day you'll see that I remember too, every second of it, and I live with it, every day. Outside, the rain began to ease. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no, but she reached into her coat and pulled out a pen. Sign the transfer authorization. I'll handle the rest. He took the pen. Their fingers brushed, just for a second, and a current passed between them, not of passion, but of something deeper, recognition. As he signed, she watched his hands. The same hands that once waved away her concerns, that signed billion-dollar deals without reading them, now signing away his last asset to save a room full of children's books. When he finished, he handed it back. What happens now? Now, she said, folding the document carefully. We wait, and we hope. But as she turned to leave, she paused at the door. You'll keep coming, right? Even after this. He met her gaze. As long as you'll have me. She didn't smile, but something in her shoulders softened. And for the first time since she'd walked back into the mansion as its owner, she didn't feel alone. Because the man who broke her heart was finally learning how to mend it. Not with grand gestures, but with presence. He was back on the roof, replacing shingles under a pale morning sun, when Mrs. Langley appeared with 2 mugs of coffee. She handed him one without a word, then leaned against the chimney, watching the neighborhood wake up. You know, she said after a long silence, Beatrice used to come here every Thursday, even when you were at your peak. Private jets, magazine covers, that ridiculous gold-plated elevator in your penthouse. Bruno almost choked on his coffee. She never told me. Of course she didn't. Mrs. Langley smiled faintly. She'd bring groceries for the food pantry, tutor kids in math, sit with old Mr. Chun after his wife passed. Always in plain clothes, no bodyguards, no name. Bruno stared into his cup. Why? Because she believed kindness shouldn't need an audience, Mrs. Langley said. Unlike some people. She gave him a look gentle but sharp. You ever wonder why she stayed so long? After you stopped seeing her. He didn't answer. He already knew. She stayed, Mrs. Langley continued, because she loved the man you were before the world told you you were a god, and she kept hoping he'd come back. Bruno's throat tightened. I didn't know any of this. No, she said softly. You were too busy being seen to do any seeing yourself. She turned to go, then paused. There's a box in the storage closet. Labeled BV, she left it years ago. Said if you ever showed up here, really showed up, I should give it to you. His heart pounded. What's in it? Mrs. Langley just smiled. Go see for yourself. He found the box tucked behind old winter coats and broken toys. Dusty, unassuming. He carried it to the reading nook, the same room he'd been repairing the night Beatrice came in the rain. He opened it slowly. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, not of galas or boardrooms, but of him, the real him. Him asleep on the couch, tie undone, mouth slightly open. Him laughing in the kitchen, flour on his nose, trying to make pancakes. Him holding her hand at her father's funeral, eyes red but steady. Beneath the photos was a journal, not hers, his. He flipped it open. It was filled with her handwriting. But it was his thoughts, transcribed from late-night rants, from moments of doubt she'd quietly recorded because he'd been too proud to write them down himself. Bruno says he's scared the company will fail, that he's not enough. I told him he's more than enough. He just forgets to be human. He cried today, didn't let me see, but I heard him in the garage. I left his favorite whiskey on the workbench. Didn't say a word. He held my hand for 10 minutes this morning. Didn't speak, just held it. I think he's finally learning how to be still. Tears blurred his vision. All this time, while he'd been chasing validation, she'd been preserving his soul, piece by fragile piece. At the bottom of the box was a single envelope, his name in her handwriting. He opened it with trembling fingers. If you're reading this, you've finally come home, not to a house, but to yourself. I never stopped loving the man beneath the myth. I just needed him to remember he existed. He sat there for a long time, the journal clutched to his chest, the sun warming the pages. Later that afternoon, he found Beatrice in the garden behind the center, helping kids plant sunflowers. He didn't say anything at first, just stood at the edge, watching her kneel in the dirt, showing a little girl how to pat the soil gently around the seed. When she finally looked up and saw him, she froze. He walked over and knelt beside her, holding out the journal. She went pale. "You weren't supposed to see that." "I'm glad I did," he said, voice rough. "All these years, I thought I was giving you a life, but you were giving me one." She looked away, blinking fast. "It wasn't charity." "No," he agreed. "It was love, the kind that sees you, even when you're trying to disappear." A silence settled between them, filled only by the children's laughter and the rustle of leaves. Then, softly, she said, "Do you hate me for keeping it all secret?" He shook his head. "I hate myself for making you feel like you had to." She met his eyes then, really met them, and for the first time he saw not judgment, not distance, but the faintest glimmer of something he'd thought was lost forever. Hope, not for a reunion, not for a return to what was, but for something new, something earned, something real. And as the sun dipped below the rooftops, casting golden light over the newly planted seeds, Bruno finally understood. The greatest legacy wasn't the empire he'd built. Beatrice had started joining him in the garden after her meetings downtown. They didn't talk much, not at first, but the silence between them had changed. It no longer felt like a wall, but a bridge being built, plank by careful plank. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in lavender and gold, she found him sitting on the old wooden bench beneath the olive tree, the one she'd brought from Seville, the one he'd once called sentimental nonsense. She sat beside him, not too close, but close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "You've been here every day for 3 months," she said quietly. "Even when it rained. Even when Mrs. Langley said you could take a break." "I didn't want a break," he replied, eyes on the horizon. "I wanted to prove I could stay." She turned to him then. "Why? What are you staying for?" He hesitated. Then softly, "For the man you saw when no one else did. The one who wasn't on magazine covers or investor decks. The one who liked burnt toast and hated ties and used to read poetry to you on Sunday mornings." Her breath caught. "You remember that?" "I remember everything," he said, voice thick. "I just forgot how to value it." A breeze stirred the leaves above them. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed. She looked down at her hands, still elegant, but now calloused from garden soil and packing food boxes. "I used to dream of you saying those words," she admitted. "But by the time you were ready to say them, I wasn't sure I wanted to hear them anymore." He didn't flinch. "I know. I was so angry," she whispered. "Not just because you chose her, but because you chose illusion over what was real. Over me." "I know," he said again, and this time his voice broke. "And if you never forgive me, I'll understand. But I needed you to know. I see you now, not as my past, not as my safety net, but as the woman who held my humanity together when I was too proud to hold it myself." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. "Do you have any idea what it cost me to walk out that day? To leave everything? The home, the name, the life. Because you looked at me like I was furniture you'd grown tired of?" "No," he said, turning to face her fully. "But I see it now, and I live with that shame every single day." She studied his face, the lines around his eyes deeper now, the arrogance gone, replaced by a quiet sorrow that felt honest, earned. "Mrs. Langley told me something," she said after a long pause. She said you signed over every cent of that patent sale without hesitation, that you didn't even ask for your name on the donor plaque. I didn't do it for recognition, he said. I did it because it was right, and because it was the first thing I've done in years that felt like me. She looked away, toward the mansion in the distance, its windows glowing softly in the twilight. I haven't sold it, she said suddenly. He didn't react, just waited. I couldn't, she continued, not because I want it, but because it's not just stone and marble. It's where we laughed, where we fought, where I waited for you to come home, night after night, hoping you'd finally see me. He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away, but she didn't. His fingers brushed hers, tentative, reverent. Then keep it, he said, but not as a monument to what we lost, as a home for what we might rebuild. She finally looked at him, eyes glistening. You'd really live there again, knowing what it cost me to leave? Only if you invite me, he said. Only if I earn the right to walk through that door, not as the owner, but as someone who respects what it means to you. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood and walked to the edge of the garden, where the first sunflower had bloomed, bright yellow, bold, unafraid. He followed, stopping a few feet behind her. You know, she said, voice soft but steady, I used to think love was sacrifice, that staying meant strength. But I was wrong. Real strength was walking away. And maybe real love is choosing to come back. Not out of guilt, but because you finally understand what you almost lost. He stepped closer. I do. She turned to him then, and for the first time in over a year, she let herself touch his face. Just a brush of her fingertips against his cheek, featherlight, testing the truth of him. And in that touch, in the quiet hum of the evening, in the golden light spilling over the garden they both tended in their own ways, something shifted. Not a promise, not a reunion, but a possibility, fragile, tender, like the first bloom of a sunflower after a long, hard winter. And for the first time since she'd returned as the mansion's new owner, he found her in the storage room, sorting donated books. She looked up when he entered, and for the first time she didn't look away. You're early, she said, setting down a stack of children's novels. I couldn't sleep, he admitted, handing her the thermos. Kept thinking about what you said last night. She took it, their fingers brushing again. This time, neither pulled away. And he leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. I've been thinking, maybe I've been approaching this all wrong. How so? I've been trying to prove I've changed, he said. But real change isn't proven. It's lived, day after day, without expectation. She studied him, eyes searching. Go on. He took a breath. So I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to come back. I'm just asking to keep showing up. Wherever you need me, however you need me. She looked down at the thermos, then back at him. Even if that means never stepping foot in the mansion again? Even then, he said without hesitation. A silence settled between them, warm, not heavy. Outside, a delivery van rumbled past. Somewhere, a child called out for Mrs. Langley. Then Beatrice set the thermos on a shelf and walked toward him. She stopped just inches away. There's an offer on the table, she said quietly. His heart stuttered. For the house. She nodded. A developer wants to turn it into luxury condos. They're offering triple market value. He didn't react, just waited. But I turned them down, she continued. Again. Why? Because I realized something, she said, voice trembling slightly. The house isn't mine to sell. Not really. It belongs to the memories we made, and the ones we might still make if we're brave enough. He swallowed hard. Beatrice. She held up a hand. I'm not offering you your old life back. That man, the one who kicked me out for a fantasy, is gone. And good riddance. He nodded. He deserved to be. But the man who fixes roofs in the rain, she said, eyes glistening, who signs away his last asset to save a room full of books, that man, I see him, and I'm willing to give him a chance. Relief and fear warred in his chest. What do you need from me? She stepped back, folding her arms. Not in defense, but in thought. The east wing is empty. The rooms are clean. The view is still the best in the city. He blinked. You're offering me a place to stay? Not as your wife, she clarified, voice firm but gentle. Not as your partner. As a tenant. You'll pay rent modest but real. You'll follow house rules. And you'll work with me on the foundation we're launching next month. The one that funds community centers like this one. He stared at her. You'd trust me with that? I trust the man you're becoming, she said. But only if you agree to one more thing. Anything. You live there for 6 months, she said. No press, no grand gestures, no declarations, just coexistence. If at the end of that time we both still believe there's something worth rebuilding, then we talk. Not about the past, about the future. He didn't answer right away. He looked past her, through the window, to the garden where the sunflowers stood tall in the morning light. Then he met her eyes. I accept. She didn't smile, but something in her shoulders relaxed. Like a weight she'd carried for years had finally been set down. Move in Monday, she said. Keys will be on the kitchen counter. Rent's due the 1st of the month. And Bruno. Yes. If you break the terms even once, you're out. No second chances. I wouldn't expect one, he said softly. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. He waited. The coffee's perfect, she said, glancing back with the faintest hint of a smile. You remembered. And with that, she walked away, leaving him standing in the quiet storage room, heart pounding, not with triumph, but with the terrifying, beautiful weight of a second chance. Because this wasn't a homecoming. It was a beginning. And for the first time in years, both of them were ready to build something real. The gate opened automatically. She'd programmed it. He walked up the gravel path slowly, each step heavier than the last. The roses had been pruned. The olive tree bore new fruit. Even the fountain, long silent during his final months of arrogance, gurgled softly, as if welcoming him back with cautious hope. Inside, the house felt different. Not colder, not emptier, just honest. No more illusions, no more performance. The grand piano in the foyer was gone, replaced by a reading nook with well-worn armchairs and shelves of books, many with his old marginalia still in the margins. On the kitchen counter, as promised, sat a single brass key on a plain wooden tag. East Wing, Room 3. And beside it, a note in her handwriting. Rent, $850 per month. Due first. Quiet hours after 10 p.m. No guests without approval. Dinner is at 7. Optional. B. He picked up the key. It was warm, as if she'd just set it down. That first week, they moved like ghosts in the same house. Careful not to collide, speaking only when necessary. He paid his rent in cash, left in an envelope on the counter. He ate dinner alone in his room most nights, though he always set a place for her at the table, just in case. But on the 5th evening, she appeared. She stood in the doorway of the dining room, wearing a simple sweater, hair loose, eyes tired from a long day at the foundation office. You left the garage light on again, she said. I'll fix it, he replied, rising quickly. She didn't leave. Instead, she walked to the table and Saturday. I heard you helped Mrs. Langley rewire the community kitchen. It needed doing. She said you stayed until midnight. He shrugged. The kids needed hot meals by morning. Silence. Then softly, you've changed. I'm trying, he said. She looked at him then, not with suspicion, but with something softer. Curiosity, maybe, or the first flicker of trust. Why? She asked. Why go through all this? You could have vanished, started over somewhere else. No one would have blamed you. He met her gaze. Because running wouldn't fix what I broke. And I realized I didn't want to be the kind of man who runs. She studied him for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. The next morning, he found a new note on the counter. Foundation meeting at 9. Conference room. Wear a tie. Not the gold one. B. He smiled, just a little, and reached for the navy silk one she'd once said made his eyes look human. Over the following weeks, they began to orbit each other with less caution. He joined her at the foundation not as a figurehead, but as a volunteer coordinator, organizing builders, managing budgets, listening to community leaders instead of talking over them. She watched him, quietly, as he knelt to fix a child's broken wheelchair ramp, as he stayed late to help a single mother fill out grant paperwork. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves alone in the archive room, sorting old donation records. "You remember the first time we met?" she asked suddenly, not looking up from the files. He paused. "At that tech gala, you spilled wine on my shirt." "I did it on purpose," she admitted, a faint smile playing on her lips. "You were so full of yourself, bragging about your disruptive vision. I wanted to see if you'd snap." He laughed, a real laugh, warm and unguarded. "I asked you out the next day because you thought I owed you an apology. And you said," he mimicked her tone perfectly, "I don't owe you anything, but I'll have coffee if you promise not to say the word synergy for an hour." They both smiled then, the memory wrapping around them like a shared blanket. Later that night, as he passed her study, he saw her sitting by the window, journal open, pen hovering. He almost walked on, but then she spoke without turning. "You can come in, you know. The door's not locked." He stepped inside. "I didn't want to intrude. You're living under my roof," she said, finally looking at him. Intrusion would have been showing up with a moving truck and a lawyer. He leaned against the doorframe. "Are we okay?" She closed the journal. "We're not okay, but we're honest. And right now, that's enough." He nodded, about to leave, when she added, "Stay for tea." It wasn't an invitation to the past. It was an opening to the future. And as he sat across from her at the small table by the window, steam curling between them, she stood beneath the old oak at the edge of the property, coat soaked, hair plastered to her face, staring at the horizon as if it held answers she couldn't find anywhere else. He didn't think. He just ran. By the time he reached her, he was drenched too, breathless, heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with the sprint through the storm. "Beatrice," he called over the drumming rain. She didn't turn. "Go back inside. I'm not leaving you out here." "Why not?" she snapped, finally facing him, eyes blazing with something raw, grief, maybe, or fear. "You left me once, in worse weather than this." The words hit like ice. He flinched but didn't retreat. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to wonder if I'll do it again." She looked away, arms wrapped around herself. 6 months is almost up." He froze. "I know. The board wants to expand the foundation to 3 new cities. They've offered me a role in Geneva." His chest tightened. "Are you going?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Part of me wants to run, to disappear somewhere you can't follow. Because every time I start to trust you, I remember the suitcase, the silence, the way you looked at me like I was already gone." He stepped closer, rain streaming down his face. "Then let me say it now, so you never have to wonder again." She turned to him, eyes searching his. "Say what?" "That I see you," he said, voice breaking. "Not the woman who kept my secrets or saved my company or even the one who walked away with dignity. I see you. The woman who cries when she thinks no one's watching, who plants sunflowers in broken soil, who still leaves my favorite mug on the counter even when I don't use it." Tears mixed with rain on her cheeks. "Why now? Why after all this time?" "Because I was blind," he said. "I thought love was possession, that having you meant I owned your loyalty, your silence, your light. But real love is witnessing. And I'm finally learning how to look." She shook her head, trembling. "I don't know if I can do this again, Bruno. I don't know if my heart can survive another fracture." He reached for her hand, slowly, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. "Then don't do it for me," he said softly. "Do it for the woman who stayed when she could have left, who rebuilt when she could have burned it all down, who still believes, somewhere deep down, that people can change." She stared at their joined hands, rain washing over them like a baptism. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "I'm asking for the chance to stand beside you, not as the man who broke you, but as the one who's trying every day to become someone who deserves you." A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the rain and the distant thunder rolling over the hills. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, "I never stopped loving you," his breath caught. "But you stopped believing in us." "I stopped believing you saw us," she corrected, tears falling freely now. "I needed you to choose me, not out of habit, not out of convenience, but because you finally understood what you almost lost." He lifted his free hand and gently brushed a wet strand of hair from her face. "I choose you, Beatrice, not because I need you to fix me, but because I want to grow with you, side by side, as equals, as partners, as friends." She searched his eyes, really searched, and for the first time, she didn't see the ghost of the man who'd cast her out. She saw the man who'd returned, humbled, hands calloused from rebuilding what he'd destroyed. And in that moment, beneath the storm, she let herself believe it. Not because he promised perfection, but because he offered truth. She leaned into him then, not a full embrace, but a yielding, a beginning. And as the rain softened to a mist, they stood together in the garden they'd both tended in their own ways. Beatrice stood in the foyer, watching as the last of the furniture was wrapped. She wasn't leaving, not really, but the house, the grand, echoing symbol of everything they'd been and lost, was no longer theirs to keep. Bruno found her there, holding a small wooden box she'd carved years ago, the one that once held their wedding rings. "You're really going through with it," he said softly. She nodded, not looking up. "The buyer's a women's cooperative. They'll turn it into a retreat for survivors, counseling, job training, healing gardens. Exactly what this place needed to become." He stepped closer. "And Geneva?" She finally met his eyes. "I turned it down." His breath caught. "Why?" "Because I realized something," she said, voice steady but tender. "Home isn't a city. It's a choice. And I choose to build it here with you if you'll have me. Not as tenants, not as ghosts of who we were, but as partners in something new." He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, quietly, "What about the foundation? The expansion?" "I'm still leading it," she said. "But from here, we'll open the first satellite center next month. In Eastbridge. You'll run operations." He almost laughed. "Me? After everything I've done? You're the only one who understands what it means to rebuild," she said. "Not from power, from humility." Outside, a truck engine rumbled to life. The last of the Valente estate. Its marble, its chandeliers, its gilded memories, was being carried away. But what remained was something far more valuable. Later that evening, they sat on the terrace, sharing a bottle of wine from the small vineyard they'd quietly purchased together the week before. No press, no fanfare, just two names on a deed and a dream of something honest. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," Bruno admitted, swirling his glass. "For you to wake up and realize I'm still the same man who handed you that suitcase." Beatrice reached for his hand. "You're not. And even if you were, I'm not the woman who needed you to be perfect. I just needed you to be real." He turned to her, the sunset painting her face in amber and rose. "What happens now?" "Now," she said, squeezing his hand. "We build something that lasts, not on wealth, not on image, but on truth." A silence settled between them, warm and full. Then, from the garden, a child's laughter rang out. Mrs. Langley's granddaughter, visiting with her class to plant winter herbs in the new community plot. Beatrice smiled. "She asked me today if this was your house." "What did you say?" "I told her it belongs to everyone who needs it." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not the woman he'd discarded, but the one who'd risen from the ashes of his arrogance and built a sanctuary from the ruins. And in that moment, he understood. The greatest legacy wasn't the empire he'd lost. It was the love he'd nearly destroyed, and the quiet, daily choice to protect it, honor it, and never take it for granted again. As night fell, They sat together in comfortable silence, hands entwined, watching the stars appear one by one over the garden they'd both learned to tend. No grand declarations, no dramatic returns, just two people choosing each other again and